My name is Steve Majors, and I want to welcome you to the inaugural event of the Idaho Citizens for Good Government. We are sponsoring this display and this press conference today because, as our name describes, we believe our Idaho Republic and its foundations are worth preserving and maintaining, and we have concerns that this is not happening. To be clear on what good government is a limited government, not a totalitarian one. It is limited to the constraints of the Constitution which established it. It is a rule of law, not of men, and all men, including elected officials, are under that law. It is law that protects the minority and the weak from the majority or the powerful. As per our founding documents, both the Declaration of Independence and the Idaho State Constitution, governments are instituted to secure and protect our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and property. Good government is that which follows this mandate above all else. What good government is not, it is not a police state. It is not a welfare state, which of necessity always becomes a police state. It is not an overreaching big government regulating and dictating all areas of our life. And it is not serving special interests over the interests of its citizens, whether they be lobbyists, big companies, elites with money, or federal money handouts with their accompanying strings attached. Our goal as the Idaho Citizens for Good Government is to help restore and maintain good government. We are here today in a petition for redress of grievance. We feel our legislature and executive are failing us in several ways. We do not want to lose our state to those agendas seeking to subvert or redefine our republic, nor to the domination of a representative government by moneyed interests, by federal intrusions, or by dictatorial rule, as if we live by the permission of the governor. So we have a display here which exhibits the actual voting record of our legislators based on standards we think closely align with our understanding of what good government should be. We have two speakers who will explain the purpose and function of the Freedom Index and possibly elaborate on a few issues. And we have invited citizens here from around the state who have stories to tell of how legislative and executive actions have harmed them. So at the close, please stay to interview those assembled here who will want to tell their stories about the things that have happened to them personally because of the failure of our legislature to represent them fairly. So, the Idaho Citizens for Good Government will be opening up a website where you can learn more about our citizen association and follow current events being exposed. So next, that will be idahocgg.com. So next we will hear from Misty Karlfeld, who is well known in the Capitol for her work with Health Freedom Idaho, but today will be speaking on behalf of American Conservative Union. She will be followed by Fred Birnbaum of the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Again, thank you for coming.
Hi there. I'm Misty Karlfeld with Health Freedom Idaho, and I'm honored to be a part of this day. It's such an important event as we kick this off because, Idaho is conservative, right? And so many political refugees are moving to Idaho because they want their conservative values to be protected, and they're relying on Idaho's elected to do that. Unfortunately, so many of Idaho's elected are running under the guise of being conservative, and they're moving the state more left. But what Idahoans really want is sovereignty, state sovereignty and individual sovereignty. So I'm really glad that this is forming so that we can actually shine a light on what is going on with our elected in Idaho and keep Idaho conservatives' values. Now, one of the tools that I've used with Health Freedom Idaho to try to understand the bills that are happening is Idaho Freedom Foundation and also ACU, American Conservative Union. So I'm going to read to you from the ACU's website, and if you want to go to conservative.org, you'll find this information. What is conservatism? Conservatism is the political philosophy that sovereignty resides in the person. We believe that the Constitution of the United States is the best political charter yet created by men for governing themselves. It is our belief that the Constitution is designed to guarantee the free exercise of the inherent rights of the individual through strictly limiting the power of government. I love that definition. Idahoans love that definition. So if you want a good resource, because we have to be educated voters, we cannot be voting for people who are running under the guise of conservatism, but truly have conservatism in their hearts, in their souls, in their being, so that when they go to vote and represent you, they're voting the way you want them to vote. So be an educated voter. Check out these bills. Check out the people who are running and see if they're actually true conservatives and are going to hold to the values that you've either grown up with here in Idaho or you've come to Idaho to protect and keep and enjoy. That's it. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Misty. My name is Fred Birnbaum with the Idaho Freedom Foundation. I'm here to talk a bit about our index. I want to talk about the why and the what. So before I get started, I want to let y'all know if you want to find out this information, if you want to see where it is, you go to idahofreedom.org. We have a web page, and then there's a little drop-down screen at the top that says indexes. I think that's the correct pronunciation. We actually have three: the Freedom Index, a Spending Index, and an Education Index, which is new this year. I'm going to speak exclusively this morning about the Freedom Index. So these scores behind you came from the Freedom Index. They're a compilation of several years of legislators' votes. How do we come up with that, and what's the why? Well, you might be surprised to hear that in 2021, 958 bills were prepared, and there were 268 changes, amendments, and engrossments. And this is from the state website. I'm a numbers guy. So it's 1,226 pieces of legislation, and about 660 were actually introduced. And then the numbers go down when you see how many are passed. It's roughly 368. Why does all that matter? Well, that is a lot of legislation. And so the reason we do the index is we believe it's important for the public and legislators to understand what's really in the bills. Do they grow government? A lot of these bills actually come from special interests or agencies themselves, and agencies generally don't show up to shrink their size, scope, and reach. So you have hundreds of bills, and one of the ways that we differ from the American Conservative Union is that we go through all of these bills. We generally don't rate resolutions and memorials unless they're very significant. We go through all of them, and then we rate about 200 bills a session. They do 30 to 40. The ACU has to cover 50 states. We just cover Idaho. And we rate these bills on a dozen metrics. And if I were to boil it down, it really comes down to these pieces of legislation as proposed grow or shrink government? Do they add new spending, new powers? And often they do. And one of the reasons you see these low grades is the culture around here is to accommodate requests, agency requests, special interest requests, and grow government. And if you don't believe me that government has grown, I can tell you, just was looking at some data the other night, the last time the federal government balanced the budget in 2001, Idaho spent about $3.6 billion, all funds, and now that's over $10 billion. So government is growing, it's just a fact. And part of the culture here is go along to get along. So by doing the Freedom Index, we believe we're providing an objective measurement of how legislation affects the size and scope of government for legislators and citizens to see before the legislation's voted on. We do several hundred bills, as I mentioned. And then when a legislator votes, we actually have software that matches their actual vote to the score, and then they get the score. So we're technically not grading the legislator. The legislator is voting, and their vote relative to our rating metric generates a score. And that's what we've been doing. We've been doing it for many years. We try to stay very consistent. It is a big challenge, and it also makes us unpopular because we're all kind of conditioned. We grow up to want to get A's and B's. And when you look around here, you see an awful lot of F's. And you think, is this state really 80% Republican? How do Republicans get F's? And I think one of the challenges that conservatives have is that a lot of people run as Republicans. They're not really committed to a philosophy of limited government. And we see that, and they resent having it pointed out. But I mean, as I would say, you know, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, in DC, we're now 30 trillion with a T of debt. And that just didn't happen. It happened because people voted for bigger spending. And Idaho, we were told yesterday by 2 U.S. senators who represent Idaho, is doing a great job. We're not like the federal government. But Idaho is able to do all the balanced budget and to spend as much as they do because we're using borrowed federal dollars. So the federal government is shoving trillions or billions our way, trillions across the country, billions our way, and then we're using that money to, for example, expand Medicaid. And so we say we have a balanced budget, but if you withdrew the federal money, we would be imbalanced overnight. So we're highly dependent. Almost half of the spending comes from federal dollars. So just to wrap this up, there are hundreds of bills. We rate the ones that we believe are impactful. It's usually a couple hundred a session. And then those bills get a score. It's a numeric score. It can be +2, -2, +3. It just depends on our metrics. Those scores are posted once a legislator votes on them, and of course they're voting daily on bills. That's what we do. We do think it's important because it's very hard for the public to stay on top of 20 bills, let alone 500 or 600 bills. Thank you, and I hope you'll check out our website, idahofreedom.org. Again, we have the Freedom Index, the Spending Index, and the Education Index. Thank you, and I'm glad that this event is happening today.